Okay, welcome everybody. Hello, Dumelang Absheng, Tovela, Lekai, Wakaeto, Makadi. Welcome to this installation for day 4 of week 1 of Comsoc 2. As you are all aware, we said we are supposed to be able to be moving between the books in Comsoc 2 book 1 and Comsoc 2 book 2 because of the way it is set up. You should be able to access and manage and organize your information. So in this installation, we are going to be talking about accident incident investigation and analysis. You have 50 accidents and incidents for that particular month, and your manager requires a report, an analysis report of what transpired. You don't go and take 50 accident reports and incidents and give to your manager. You must generate and create a report, an analysis report. That's what we are talking about. This is what you are supposed to know and understand. So there are certain criteria that, amongst others, that I'm going to show you that you must use in a report, analysis report for accidents. In this installation, there are no objectives that we are going to talk about. However, the topic still, you are going to get questions in your assignment, in your assessment, sorry. In your assessment, there are questions on this topic. Remember, what is in red, please take note of that, because in this presentation, we are going to be discussing exactly the items and the criteria that are used when one is to analyze accidents and incidents in their sections or in their mine or operation. Right. The guys in the safety department, the administrative side, administration, they will understand this because to them it is just a walk in the park. But for the other guys, you must know as soon as you finish your investigation, you write your report, and that is what you submit. But what happens after? How do we get the management team at that higher level get to know what is happening or what happened in that previous month in terms of accident? We don't take a pile of reports and say, Minier, that is what happened. It doesn't work that way. Okay, even with the DMRE, the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, they also need, imagine if they have to handle that kind of information from across all mines, what kind of information is going to be. But you'll be surprised. Each mine is going to send just one sheet or one Excel spreadsheet with all the information in it, or even an Excel book with all the information, because in most cases the DMRE wants per accident category, okay, what transpired. So what I'm talking about is the following. They give us guidelines with what is known as SAMRAS. SAMRAS means the South African Mines Reportable Accident Statistics System. This is a typical example we can also use locally in our mines to have a record and an analysis of what happens. And that's what management also use. Okay? Because all accidents that you hear the DMRE saying this happened, that happened, where are they getting that information? The law requires the mine where that accident or incident or dangerous occurrence occurred to report to them. Okay? And this is what we call the SAMRAS codebook for all reportable accidents. It's a statistical system. Okay? But what is involved in an analysis, a typical example from the SAMRAS system is, I don't know what about this mine, it's just this is an old, you can see it was still called DME, but this system is still the same actually. So this is for your 1 to 13 day injuries for the month. In other words, those injuries that must be reported whereby the employee is off sick for more than 14 days, so to speak. So you will see it's an Excel spreadsheet with all the columns and the rows. So each accident will have an identifying number. Say in your own local mine, to have an identifying number. So you will see there they want the date of the accident or dangerous occurrence, you must fill it in, the year, the account number or the employer account number, the shaft where it happened, the identity number of the injured, the company number of the injured, industry number of the injured, or the surname of the injured, date of work, date of return to work, days absent. Sorry, this thing normally wants to change on its own. Days absent, uh, danger occurrence, the place, the location of the accidents, the nature of the accidents, the body part where the person was injured, the number of days that were lost, and what activity was being performed. So you can see this is a set of criteria that you must fill in. So this one row here under these columns, this one row will give you information. The administrators know they capture information for one particular accident here. Okay, and the next one comes in for. So if you fill in all this for the month, so you are getting your information from your accident incident reports. Then you take that information and you are capturing it in here. So when your manager or the DMRE or whatever wants your accident incident investigation analysis, what do you send them? Exactly something like this. That's what you are sending. Let me use my laser pointer. You are sending them exactly something like this. Okay. So as I said, we are not going to get into the nitty-gritty of what is the investigation process and all that at this level. We are talking about analysis. Okay? But before we go in there, remember what I said, if it is in red, it is very important. So let's start to recap on what we covered in COMSOC 1. Accident incident results. Okay? In accident incident results, you are required to tell us what are the results of accidents, particularly with a focus on the humane aspects. What are the humane aspects of accident incident results? That's what we are asking. And if you remember very well, I'll quickly go through this. The four main items, amongst others, that we talk about as the humane aspect of accident results. You are required to give us 4 of these in your test as answers. So the results of accident in the humane aspect simply means when somebody gets injured or killed, there is sorrow. We feel sorrowful. There is physical pain. This is what the person feels, not what the organization feels. It is what the person feels. Discomfort and pain is unique to each and every human being. Okay? It is a humane aspect. The mind does not feel this. Okay? The mind is an entity, remember, with people and equipment and whatever. But we are talking about the human beings, what they feel about. Okay? Undesired hardships. The guys maybe lost their legs or broken their back. They can't work anymore. When they leave the hospital after months and months on end for treatment, what's going to happen when they come out? Are they still going to go back in their same position? It's a problem. It's a challenge. Okay? So now that employee in a wheelchair now must endure hardships because not employed. Okay? Inconvenience for the family members, your kids, your kids, your wife. It becomes and I know in COMSOC 1 we discussed in most cases whole families break down, marriages break down. Okay? And when you are at this level, psychological problems, that's a point of almost no return. Okay? Because here you are now, it's leading now to issues of stress and depression, which are medical conditions, particularly with depression. And imagine you are in a wheelchair, not working, you've endured all this, and you are at this stage. What normally happens if you don't get proper help? It's a serious case. So we need you to give us 4 of these. Remember, what is in red is very, very much important. What about, on the other hand, we talk about economic results, economic aspects to accidents and incidents. What are those economic aspects? Under actual cost, if you remember the iceberg theory, the Titanic analogy with the iceberg theory, what you see on top is totally different from what you see at the bottom. Where we spoke about in COMSOC 1 that 1 rand in actual costs that we can calculate as a result of accident is actually, you can be sure to calculate another 6 to 53 rands in hidden costs. That's what we're talking about, in hidden costs. So in this slide here, we need you to give us at least 3 economic aspects, whether it's actual or hidden, it doesn't matter. Just choose any 3 of them. Just choose any 3. Okay. Now, accident incident investigation is an important part of safety, particularly safety management, so to speak. Okay. Why? Why do we investigate accidents? That's the question. Because we want to determine what happened, we want to evaluate the risk, but most importantly, we want to prevent it from happening again. For 2 marks, it's in red. We want to prevent it from happening again. That's for 2 marks. Okay. Now, which accidents and which incidents must be reported? According to the law, all accidents which result in losses must be investigated and reported, and all incidents with a high potential for loss must be investigated and also be reported without delay. Now, the investigation process, if I can take you through the process in a cascading manner, if you remember, you have your loss, especially the root cause analysis technique. You start with identifying what was in the loss and what was the contact in terms of the event or the incident itself, in terms of how were the energies transferred. Then here you have to identify the substandard acts and substandard conditions, what we call immediate causes. And you've got your personal factors and job factors, the roots, what we call the main causes of basic causes, what we call the basic causes of an accident. And then we have the control. Control is where all our system, our safety box that we always talk about is at, because this should lead to you to this, to identify what system failed for this to occur. So in other words, if you reconstruct the accident, if you start from the system you've identified, because when you investigate, you start from there, identify that, until you get to the system. So when you want to reconstruct the accident based on your investigation, you identify what went wrong with the system, which led to these root causes, which led to the immediate causes, which led to the contact and the loss. Okay? By the way, these ones are also known as the direct causes, and these ones are the indirect causes. So there are many, depending on the technique you are using, ARACET or SCET analysis. SCET simply means system cause analysis technique. ARACET means root cause analysis technique. It depends which one you are using. Yes, there are other accident incident investigation techniques, your ICAMs, your 5 Whys, and so on and so forth. We like to focus on this, but we are not confined to also talk about the other techniques. Just look at what your organization is using and get training for these techniques as a belief. Now, our other very important point to revise on in this installation or in this segment are the investigation report forms. Remember, after you investigate, this is when you take your information and you now start to populate your investigation report. Now, it is the rule of thumb that this report should have very specific sections in a report, in that report. These sections are very important. Which sections are those? 5 sections that you can have many, but these 5 sections should always be there because they are very critical. For example, the first section, the section number 1, we need the identifying information in your report. Otherwise, you can't write a report without identifying who was involved and where did it happen. So we need this information. So that's very important. We also need the description section of the accident, summary description of what transpired. We need the cause analysis. The cause analysis is that described in the previous slide. Okay, what was the loss? What was the event or the contact? What were the immediate causes? What were the basic causes? What system was flawed or was inadequate, which led to the accident? That's a cause analysis that you need there. Remedial actions, yeah, that can be done in another committee after you investigate, because not all of us are experts in remedial actions. Sometimes you need to pull in the expertise that is available to give you a plan of action on how your remedial actions have to go about. But yes, last but not least, this is a very important section. There must be proper signatures in that report. So for this slide as an objective, you are looking at 4 points that you should get. 4 points that we need you to get. Let's use the pen. So you have this point, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. 4 points in this presentation, in this slide in the presentation for investigation report forms. Please take note of that. Now, what are the benefits of good investigations? We discussed this as well in the previous course in COMSOC 1, where we described what are the benefits. It shows concern for our employees. I mean, we have to be concerned about employee welfare. That's what it is. If you are not showing concern for your employee welfare, that's problematic. So it shows concern for our employee welfare, increases production. How are good investigations able to increase production? It's very simple. Remember, the purpose of an investigation is to prevent it from happening again. If we no longer have these accidents and incidents, what does it mean? We are always producing. People don't realize that when people get injured and they are lying in hospital, remember there's a business plan that the mine is working towards. So in your business plan, it talks about the human capital, how many people should be at work per shift to produce the targeted tonnages. Now, if you have 100, 200 people lying in hospital, are you going to reach your target? So that's why you see even in some mines, I used to it's not a laughing matter though, but I used to see that somebody gets injured here and there, and they go to the medical station, they come back, and instead of them taking the off days, the managers and the supervisors will be trying to convince the employee, listen, don't go home because you're going to lose the shifts, and it will reflect badly versus the targeted production. So they were trying to convince the employee, come, you just work on surface and just come and clock in and work on surface. There have been fraud cases where some people also even take the clocking cards of the injured person and they clock for them whilst the guy is recuperating at home. I don't know to what end. Just to show the figures that everything was there, people were there, the required numbers were there, but the productivity still suffers. So yes, it's still happening. Good accidents investigations reduce costs. Why? Accidents are costly. Every loss that you have is costly, because if you can imagine how much does it cost a mine, an average mine in South Africa, per fatality. We are talking in the region of 10 million rands. We are talking of your hidden costs and actual costs. If you consider those, from your legal liability, compensation, hospital fees, funeral fees, you name it, it can go in excess of 10 million rands. Worse with inflation, rand US dollar inflation, worse with the economies in the recession, the COVID virus and all that, the costs can escalate. They are always changing. And it demonstrates supervisory control. Why do we talk about benefits, this as a benefit? Because you can't have a supervisor, okay, who does not understand the investigation process, and you expect them to be in control of their department. Okay? But if they are involved from the scratch, from the word go, in investigating what happened, what went wrong, because that's what we do. Supervisors, first line supervisors or front line supervisors should be spearheading the investigations. We as the safety department on the other hand, we should be the ones to guide, and they must consult us, and we facilitate the process, because each mine has got the investigation procedure, isn't it? So we are there to ensure that the procedure is followed to the T. That's why we are there. But what do we see? We see a lot of mines, when something goes wrong and there's an investigation required, boom, the safety officer is the one spearheading the investigation. And the supervisors take a back seat. He says, the safety officer is doing it, it's his job. Be wary of that, because we want them to demonstrate they are in control. That is why we encourage for them to be the team leaders or the chairperson or the team leader during the investigations. You are there to assist. Okay, you are there sounding bell when you are there as a safety practitioner to show them which way to do the investigation. Now, which takes us to accident incident investigation analysis now, the backbone of this topic in COMSOC 2. When we are analyzing accident and incident, what are we trying to determine? Remember, why analyze it? It is for the purposes of determining and developing trends, patterns, trends and patterns in our organization of what is happening. Why are people getting injured? Why is this happening in that section only? I can tell you right now, if you go to any gold mine, they will tell you the times that they mostly get accidents, time of the day. They will tell you it will be either between 1 and 3 a.m. Serious accidents occur there, night shift. And when, in terms of days of the month, towards the end of the month. And when, in terms of the year, we tell you, we like to call it silly season, towards the festive season. We lose a lot of people. So that's a trend. How do we know that? It's because we analyze our accident and we can see the data as we analyze it and fit it in their correct columns that yes, this is a pattern, this is a trend. So for 2 marks, we will be asking you, why do we analyze accidents and incidents? It is therefore in order to determine trends. Now, when analyzing accidents, and this, ladies and gentlemen, is for your 4 marks. This is for 4 marks. I can take you back to this one is your 2 marks. Okay. When you go and analyze casualty accidents, let's just explain what are casualty accidents. Casualty accidents are those accidents whereby you have personal injuries. In other words, people get injured. Okay? We must differentiate between the casualty and non-casualty accidents. So in casualties, people get injured. When you analyze some of the criteria we use in those columns that I mentioned in the beginning, we look at things like the agencies that were involved in the accident or the type of the accident, the day of the month when it happens. You must also highlight that, and the time of the day when it happens, the area where it happens, the nature of the injuries. I'm sure you remember in that column it shows body part, okay, or nature of injury. What is a fracture, a bruise, an amputation, a loss of a limb, a contusion, you name it, a laceration, and so forth, you name it. So we need that as well. Or what was the task being performed? Was it drilling? Was it loading? Was it hauling? Or whatever? What were the causes? And this you get from your investigation, particularly your basic causes. What were the causes? Lack of skill, lack of knowledge, and so on and so forth. So for the purposes of this assessment, you need to give us 4 of these as a belief. Now, we go to the non-casualty accidents or property damage ones. Again, we've got a criteria that we use to analyze, so criterion for analysis of these kinds of accidents. What are those costs? Again, this is with a good 4 marks that we must apply. The costs, the item that was damaged, the causes, the frequency of the damage, and the time. Even the day where it happened, the day, you can also use the day where it happened. You can include that as well. So, moving forward, these are what we call general questions that you must be aware. Let me put the number of weight in gold each question is worth, as it is going to come up in your assessment. Explain your accident incident reporting system at your mine. This should give you required to give us at least 5 points for that. Okay, like so. How would you improve the quality of accident investigations in your mine? Again, you must give us 5 points for that. Under general questions, you'll meet them in that section. And then Why is it important on it is always important to focus on the human factors during investigations. You must give us it's worth 2 marks. And the role of the safety rep during investigations is also worth 2 marks. So let's go to the first one in a discussion point, in terms of discussion, um, so that we know what we are supposed to be talking about. Where is my highlighter? I need to just put the highlighter there and pause this. So when you look at the first assessment, or the first question in the general important sections, explain your accident incident reporting system. In COMSOC 1, I remember very well we discussed the first phase, in the first video clip of accident investigation process. When we learn in COMSOC 1, there is a first video clip that talks about responding to an accident scene. The guidelines, the generic guidelines of responding to an accident scene. So if we look at the generic reporting system, we are not talking about accident investigation report. No, we are talking about an accident happens and you are there. And we are saying, what are the steps that one has to follow so that people who have got the proper appointments, who can assist professionally, can be notified about what has just happened. So these are the generic steps that we talk about. Okay. Step number 1. I need you to write this for you to get your 5 marks. Okay. Step number 1. Assess the situation, because you can't just jump in to assist an injured person. Number 1, assess the environment for secondary accidents. Okay. You are saying, is it safe for me to assist here before I can just jump in? Because we say it in safety, if you just jump in without proper assessment for your safety, you can also die in that situation. You can also die. So assess the situation for safety. And if you are satisfied it's safe, that's when we say you must then render first aid, because it's safe. So you can start helping the patient. Render first aid. Okay. Once you render first aid, you notify your control room. All companies have got those emergency numbers. Notify your control room. And then from there, we are looking at what does control room do now. Number 4, we say the control room notifies emergency rescue services. They notify the emergency rescue services. And number 5, we say the control room notifies management. Because in COMSOC 1, we said a manager must be notified without delay because they are the resource persons. So it's all linked. So we'll recap on that on the first general question there. Assess for secondary accidents, render first aid or give first aid, notify your control room notifies emergency rescue services, and control room notifies management. And we are done. Which takes us to the next question. How would you improve the quality of accident investigations in your mind? Yes, I've seen situations where somebody submits a report, even the inspector looks at a report and they throw it away. What is this? Because the process is not even scientific about the report. How did you manage to investigate this accident? Because what you are writing there, it does not even follow scientific argument. So you are the chief safety officer of this department or this section of this mine, and you've got situation where the quality of your accident reports is being criticized. What interventions would you put in place to improve quality? This is what the question is requiring of you. Interventions to put in place. We need 5 of them. There are many you can think of. We need 5. Number 1, retraining. Retrain everybody who does investigations. That's an intervention. Number 2, what we call shadowing or understudying. Get those experienced madalas who have been doing this for years, and this new crop of new employees in the field will be following them and working with them. So shadowing or understudy. Number 3, you can rope in consultants. You can bring consultants to assist you in improving the quality. Okay? You can rope in consultants. Number 4, you can also include a quality checklist in your investigation process, whereby for each step everybody ticks, this is done, this is done, this is done, this is done, this is done. Okay. And number 5, you can do a PTO. Some people do PTOs on somebody doing an investigation to look at the gaps. Then you can always close those gaps. So you can conduct PTOs for investigation process, because it's a procedure, isn't it, that you're following steps. So if you see any gap, you can cover those gaps. So conduct a PTO, because an investigation process has got a procedure. So you've got it, and you are measuring against somebody doing an investigation. If you see the gaps, that's where we must put interventions. So amongst others, you can think, these are practical questions, ladies and gentlemen. Think about them. You see, even in week 2, we've got plenty of practical questions, what we call application of knowledge, that you'll be required to apply. Now, we go to the next question. Why is it important to focus on human factors during investigations? This we've already touched on the previous day's lessons or installment, whereby we were talking about, remember the last slide we had, or second last slide we had, under inspections, where we were comparing plant task observations and inspections. And the reasons why we use those two systems is because we are also looking for substandard X and substandard conditions. And what did we say about who causes most accidents? We said 98% of all accidents are literally caused by people. Hence, you see the focus on human factors. I don't know, some people get so riled up when managers are saying to the person or at the scene of the accident, or even we follow the injured to hospital to get a statement as they are in pain. We follow the ambulance to get to the hospital. And when we get permission from the medical professionals attending to the patient, if this person can give us a statement, then that's fine. Why? A lot of people argue that, yeah, the guy is in pain and what are you doing and so forth. There is a reason. It's because 98% of all accidents are caused by people. And the longer we take to get that information, the longer, people start to think about ways to relate to what happened when they get questioned at a later stage. So you don't want to take too long to ask questions. Okay? It's legal to ask questions of an injured person. There's nothing, as long as you are given permission by the medical professionals attending to that person. So yes, human factors are known. 98% of all accidents, it has been discovered that they cause accidents. But remember, I also said in that one installation that also your systems, the systems can fail. So we shouldn't only stop investigating after we identify the human factors. We must also go right through the process and identify the systems. If our systems are fine, fair enough. But sometimes systems can be inadequate or can lack, and which can lead to accidents. Lastly, the role of the safety rep. What is the safety rep doing in investigations? Because it is compulsory for the safety representative to be there during investigations. So what is their role? We always say the role is also to assist employees in terms of protecting their rights during the investigation. Remember, a witness or the injured must have a representative. The safety rep, besides, we know he's there all the time, but sometimes safety reps are not there when people get injured, because they are part-time on safety. They have their own activities they are doing, their own tasks. But during investigations, we want them in. Why? They are there to protect the rights of the employees so that they are not infringed upon. Because there are managers who can be bulldozing and threatening witnesses. And if the safety rep is there, according to the Mine Health and Safety Act, they are there also to protect the rights of the employees involved in accidents during investigations. I hope that clarifies this. So, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of this installation for our day 4, week 1, COMSOC 2, book 2 lessons in preparation for our first assessment. Any questions, We're going to discuss them on the day after day 4 to highlight the objectives or clarify any factors that other members of the team need to know. With that, thank you very much.